Best Irish music on irishradio.org with Jerry Byrne.
My next guest is Amanda Cassidy, who has recently published her debut novel. And now the title is Breaking. It's published by Canelo and is available in all good bookshops such as Waterstones and Blackwell's and online sources such as Amazon. Amanda has an interesting background. She's a journalist, commissioning editor and former Sky News reporter. As we'll find out, Breaking is a crime thriller. Amanda, lovely to speak to you. Welcome along.
Thank you so much for having me, Jerry. I'm so happy to be here today.
Amanda, listen, just a bit of insight into you. You know, your mother is from Dublin, your father is from Leitrim. You live in Dublin. Your novel centres on children and their circumstances. Do you enjoy the contrast between Dublin and Leitrim as you were growing up?
I did, yeah. I spent a lot of very happy memories and times growing up in Leitrim around Mohill, where my father's from, and his father was from there as well. So we would travel there quite a bit. I live in Dublin myself, and I still live in Dublin. So, but we would still have quite a good relationship with Leitrim and going up and down to there. Also, some of my father's aunts and uncles, they emigrated to New York years back. So we have a lot of family over in America as well. So we would have spent a few summers over in Long Island and Garden City, where they were from. So yeah, we've had quite a mix of places to go and family to see over the years.
Indeed. Now, you went on to graduate from Trinity College in Dublin. What did you actually study there?
So I studied European studies, so that's a mix of European history, international relations, and I chose French and Italian as my two languages to study. It was kind of an unusual choice, but I did always want to do communications, but I'd also had quite a passion for the European institutions, and I thought maybe I'd have a career working in maybe the European Parliament or something. But then just as I was graduating, I got the opportunity to do an internship with Sky News. So it was a crossroads moment. And I chose the journalism route, which kind of brought me to this place. So I often wonder what would have happened had I gone on to do that internship with the European Parliament. But you never know. Maybe if the books don't work out in the long term, I could always end up there.
Right. No, it's interesting that useful, I must say, a major achievement. Now, I understand that you wrote your novel in lockdown. Was it on the bucket list before that, and then the circumstances we all found ourselves in made it possible?
Yeah, I think it was the perfect timing for me in a strange way. We'd spent some time in Spain where my husband works, and during lockdown, and we'd had a recent bereavement as well. So I was sitting on the beach watching my own children playing in the waves, and I wondered to myself what would happen if I lost one of them, or if something awful happened to them on my watch. And then I imagined what would happen if I'd been drinking or something like that. And I just wanted to play with those expectations that society has on motherhood. And that's really where the book took off from. But I think as a journalist, I was always telling other people's stories. And I just felt like during the lockdown, it was very quiet. We didn't have the school run and the kids' activities. So it felt like the perfect time for me to tell my own version of some of the crime stories that I covered over the years, and to be a bit creative with that.
Well done on it all. Now, the reviews of the book on Goodreads and other sources are very, very good. Prima Magazine says this twisty crime thriller had me gripped from the very first page. The Daily Mail said the story draws you in immediately. That must be very encouraging.
I was just so blown away by the reaction, to be honest, and some really wonderful authors who I admire, like Liz Nugent and Joe Spain. And so I was really just blown away by the reaction from a lot of people to the story.
That's absolutely excellent. Now, the plot is of a mother, Dr. Miriam Fitzpatrick, who is struggling with guilt. Now, alarmingly, she has issues bonding with her children. This comes to a head on a family holiday from Ireland to Florida Keys. Oh, listen to what it seems. I don't want to risk any spoilers, so you can please just give us a brief summary of the storyline.
Yeah, so the story is about a mother who loses her child on a beach in Florida. Miriam Fitzpatrick loses her 8-year-old child, Alana, on the beach while they're on holidays in a 5-star beach resort. And when she's caught out in a lie and they find out she's drinking in a bar, the media turns on her. Then, meanwhile, no-nonsense detective Antonio Role He's an American detective. He's tasked with finding the little girl, but all is not what it seems with him either. He's has his own problems, and his job is on the line after quite a violent incident in Miami nearby. So he's trying to find the little girl, and meanwhile, all the media focus is on the sins of the mother. But it's only really the detective who's really asking the most important question of all, which is where is Alana Fitzpatrick, and how did she vanish into thin air?
Right. Now, I must say it's intriguing. Now you've mastered the art of steering the reader's thinking in one direction, and then they realise that they should actually be looking in another.
Yeah, I enjoyed casting that suspicion on a lot of the different characters along the way. I think it's quite a difficult thing to do, and I always wanted to make sure that the readers were along for the ride. But I really enjoyed kind of cloaking all of the characters with some sort of suspicion, even if it didn't turn out to be suspicious in the end. But I think the really important thing is that characters are complex and are layered, and I really, yeah, I enjoyed writing those different characters along the way.
Right, now as for the title, Breaking, it can be interpreted in many ways. Breaking news at a breakpoint emotionally or fractured relationship. Can you give us any clues, or do those suspense simply have to buy the novel to find out?
Yeah, it was funny because the original name for the book was Where Lost Things Go, but somewhere along the way it got changed, and that happens in publishing, which I didn't realize. It's that they decide on the name of the book, and hopefully you like it, which I luckily I really did. I liked the one word line, and as being a journalist, the breaking news part of it was something that I could really relate to, and I think it portrays the story really well. I think the breaking of relationships. I think that every book and every fictional story needs conflict. So I think it's quite normal for the impact of crime on family dynamics to shine through. And then obviously the breaking of the waves. The book itself is set partially in Connemara in Ireland, on the beach where Mirren Fitzpatrick grows up, but it's also set in Florida in what's considered paradise, especially for Irish people. There's quite a relationship there between Ireland and Florida. So I just wanted to contrast those two different beach settings. And then there's a lot of watery imagery of breaking waves and foam, and there's even a lot of Irish superstition thrown in there. So it has a little bit of everything.
Right, now as we mentioned earlier, you wrote Breaking during lockdown. At that time when your children were aged 7 and 11, they were off. Now presumably there was homeschooling running parallel with that. Did you have actually a target number of words to write in any one day?
Yeah, exactly. So I did do that. So every morning we would, I would homeschool the children, and then in the afternoons we'd spend some time just going out and about in fresh air, and then in the evening time at 6 o'clock in the evening until about 8. When I'd let the children on screens, I would write, and that would be my writing time. And I figured if I wrote 1,000 words a day for 80 or 90 days, I'd have a book. And I think that's for me, that's writing the equivalent of one of my journalistic articles a day. So I felt that was quite doable. So luckily it started flowing, and actually the first chapter of Breaking, I wrote on the back of my son's homeschool copy when I was in the beach bar that day watching the children playing on the beach. It's changed a bit now, obviously, but with the edits. But that was really where the seed of the book came from. And then for me, it was escapism. I feel like if I couldn't control the world around me, I would create my own, and I probably found a bit of solstice in that as well.
Well, that's quite a schedule, I must say, in doing that. Now, the central character, Dr. Mirren, is perceived as being a high flyer. Arguably, that means that when a child goes missing, there is less sympathy for her than there might be for someone of a less privileged background. Now, Amanda, this can reflect real life. We've all seen trial by media, and then the way in which people are swayed by that in the case of missing children.
Yeah, I think from working in media, I've always been quite aware of the gap between certain areas of society, certain elements of society that are reported on and that aren't. And I know that certain circumstances where the inverted commas higher status people who to usually get the coverage, and I think this is seen across the board. So I think through the story, I wanted to make those points, and maybe as a journalist, even though I was writing fiction, there were certain themes in the book that seemed to stand out. That I think I was trying to say something, but it's funny. Only in hindsight, when you go back and read it, you realize the various strands that you're trying to pull out of the story and to highlight. And I think speaking to a lot of people who've read the book, a lot of people did pick up on that, and they enjoyed that element of what I'd highlighted.
No, Breaking is clearly going to be a big success and could be on many a Christmas shopping list. Have you thought about a follow-up with another book at this stage?
Yeah, I was very lucky in that I'd heard of second book syndrome, which is a lot of pressure to write a follow-up book. So I quickly, while I'd sent Breaking off to get my edits, I quickly started writing my second book. I write fast anyway. I enjoy it. It's a hobby and a passion, so it didn't feel like work. And I quickly wrote the follow-up book. Now it's not a sequel to Breaking, but it is a police procedural, and it is also based on the impact of crime on family dynamics. It's actually about a house fire. Unfortunately, it's inspired by a house fire we had in our own house when my youngest daughter was a newborn, and then it's just about the impact of that house fire. It's quite a mysterious one, and there's different elements that tend to come out. But that is out in July, and I'm currently working on the second round of edits for that. So it probably has to go through about 2 or 3 more rounds of edits with my publishers, and then I'll get stuck into book 3.
Wow, well done. Now, just recap on the plot. Dr. Miriam Fitzpatrick is a troubled mother. Suspicion falls on her when her daughter goes missing. She's been rowing in conflict with her husband. As more details emerge, there's a lack of sympathy for her, and the media are quick to have a field day. Is that a fair account of, or is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think that's a really good sum up of the book. I think what's important for me when I was writing the book was I really wanted to show the impact of generational trauma on a family. So I wanted to ask the question, what if you'd never been taught how to mother? And so the suspicion goes instantly onto Miriam Fitzpatrick because she was drinking. So is she, inverted commas, bad because she was drinking in a bar, or is it because of the strange superstitions her own parents grew up with? Or is it because she never was taught how to mother correctly that she's coming across as a so-called bad mother? Or is she or does she have something to do with it? So I'm very interested in how your childhood shapes you as a person. And I think the whole way along, Miriam is just so aware of her childhood wasn't perfect. And she's just very keen for that not to shine through with her own daughters.
Now, would you agree that there's immense pressure on mothers since people are inclined to put them on a pedestal, but at the same time, they're only human?
Yeah, I think there's an overcorrection perhaps in fiction for all the passive female characters that have been along the way. And I think that overcorrection is maybe giving mothers a very kind of a warped voice in fiction. And I think a lot of stories over the last 200 years were told from a children's point of view, albeit grown-up children. And I think now, just with the recent kind of mummyhood, motherhood noir genre that's come out, I do think that it's time maybe mothers had a voice, and maybe they're trying to explain their side of the story of why they are the way they are.
Now, Breaking is clearly compelling. Now, comparisons have been made with other Irish crime writers, Gillian Flynn and Ashley Audron. You must be very pleased to hear that.
Oh, I was just blown away. And actually, Ashley O'Dran, when I read the push, I just absolutely loved it. And then when she went to read my book, and then she gave me a fantastic quote on the front of my book, I was just blown away because our stories encompass quite similar themes, and I just loved the sinister nature of her writing. And then Gillian Flynn, I mean, I loved Sharp Objects, and I just love how she can peel back the layers of the different dynamics within relationships. I think that takes such skill. So to be compared to them is just it's a dream come true, really. And there's so many other amazing Irish writers at the moment. So I'm in very good company and very good. I have a lot of mentors within the community, the writing community, especially Andrea Mara, who wrote Hide and Seek, and of course Catherine Ryan Howard, and Sam Blake. There's some really, really, really strong Irish writers that have inspired me along the way.
Excellent. Now, it's the perfect time to bring out a book, and I hope our listeners will be inspired to buy a copy either for themselves or if they know of family or friends who like this particular genre of literature. We've made comparisons with your contemporaries. Therefore, to say, what is the unique selling point of Breaking?
I think that I tried to find that perfect intersection between a really compelling plot, but also really lyrical, poetic words, because I love words and I love the space between words and I love what you can say without saying it. And I also wanted to add some of the Irish lyricism and the countryside from Ireland. As I said, part of it is based in Connemara. So I wanted to take all those things and see if you can put them all together. And when I sat down to write the book, I didn't think I could. I sat down to see if I could. And then as it flowed and as it then suddenly became a thing beyond me, I was just so delighted that apparently those ingredients do work. So I think the uniqueness of Breaking is the fact that you can have a really tight plot, a sinister plotted story, but you can also have those, poetic moments or the moments that give you shivers just by the mere virtue of the words.
Right, now, despite the grim circumstances of lockdown, I'm pleased at least that it gave you the opportunity to write Breaking. Now, once again, the publishers are specialists in the crime genre. They are Canelo. The novel is available from all good bookshops. You can see the banner on our website, irishradio.org. Amanda, I trust your intriguing insight will encourage many people to order Breaking. I wish you every success. It was lovely to speak to you.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.